To begin.
Thank you, Nancy. Good afternoon, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Highland Park and Highwood's first virtual candidates forum. I am Judy Miller, the chair of the leadership team for the Highland Park-Highwood League. For the last 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been dedicated to ensuring that our elections remain free, fair, and accessible. We believe that voters should play a critical role in democracy and that all eligible voters should have equal opportunities to exercise their rights to vote. We are a grassroots, activist, and nonpartisan organization open to all persons over the age of 16. Since 1972, when I joined the League, we have published a voter's guide in which all the candidates have been invited to state their views. This guide has taken many forms, as inserts in newspapers, mailings to all city residents, email mailings, and since 2010, electronically. Also, since the 70s or even earlier, the League of Women Voters of Highland Park has offered the public opportunities to meet and hear our candidates face to face. These events, our candidate forums, have been held in schools, park district gyms, banquet halls, out in the open, and this year, virtually. Because we are virtual, there is no table on which to put membership materials, but we invite you to join us as members. Again, welcome candidates, members of the public, and our members. And don't forget to vote on April 6th. I would now like to introduce to you Elaine Adler, our Voter Services Chairman.
Hello, audience. Today we welcome you to our Candidates Forum. We know we are going to have debates among candidates for the City Council and the Park District, and we are replicating our usual candidate forums that we have presented primarily at the Highland Park Country Club. Guiding us today through this practice are our co-hosts, Mary Beth Arzak and Nancy Goldberg, who also authored the Voter's Guide. And we want to thank them very much for the time they've spent in putting this all together. You can also check out our website for more information. And of course, this video today is going to be recorded. One primary adage of our league is your vote counts. And in keeping with the fact that we do not endorse or support candidates, our moderators come from different leagues. Karen Rebar from the Arlington Heights area will moderate the first debate for the City Council. And Paula Lawson, who comes from the Glenview-Glencoe League, will moderate the Park District. Karen is the former president of Cook County League of Women Voters and the current vice president of that league, among her many community achievements. And I want to thank you, moderators. I also want to thank our audience for your questions, which are submitted by the deadline that you registered. They've been sorted to avoid duplicates. The candidates have signed off on our forum guidelines, and Karen will review them with you. Again, there'll be a 5-minute intermission before the second forum. And Karen, will you begin? And thank you.
Good afternoon, candidates and audience. I'm Karen Rebar, your moderator for today. This is the forum for the Highland Park City Council. There are 6 candidates running for 3 open seats on the council. These are all 4-year terms. The candidates are Annette Lidower, Andres Tapia, Kim Stone, Yumi Ross, Lori Flores-Weiskopf, and Jamie E. Bay. The candidates here today have agreed to the League's ground rules and format. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement and will be allowed up to 90 seconds to answer each question previously submitted by voters. Each candidate will answer the same questions. I will repeat a question if asked. After the questions have been answered, each candidate will be given up to a 1 minute for a closing statement. The order of the candidates' opening statements has been previously decided by ballot order. After that, questions will be rotated among the candidates and closing statements will be in reverse order of the opening statement. There will be no exchange between candidates, nor any rebuttals. Candidates, please remember to watch the timer. There will be a 1 minute and a 30-second warning times and then a stop sign. I ask that you finish your question then. At this time, would the candidates please turn on your video, but please keep your audio off until your turn to speak. Thanks. Okay, good. With that said, it looks like everybody's here. Let us begin. Candidate Annette Lidower, you may start with your 2-minute opening.
I'm Annette Lidower, and I've lived in Highland Park for the last 22 years with my husband, Rob Rubin, and 3 now grown children, Matthew, Ari, and Allie. I believe my 35-year record of public service has given me a depth and breadth of experience which will be valuable in serving on the City Council. Trained as an attorney and educator, I've worked in the public sector and served at all levels of government for all but 5 years in my adult life. On the federal level, I served as the district administrator to Congressman Stephen Solars. In New York State, I was an assistant attorney general and Governor Mario Cuomo's ombudsman. I brought federal dollars to communities and state services to constituents. Under my guidance, the congressional district reaped the 3rd most federal dollars for education of any district in the United States. Locally, when I served on the District 113 board for 2 terms, and especially during my time as vice president and president, I worked with officials from all local government bodies. Intergovernmental collaboration was the cornerstone of all our successful initiatives. Similarly, as a commissioner for Highland Park's Plan and Design Commission, I reviewed key proposals such as the repurposing of the Saks Fifth Avenue building and the elimination of certain restrictions on downtown Highland Park's Central Business District. The knowledge, skills, experience, and track record I have will enable me to effectively work on Highland Park's business from my first day on the job. I have a long list of current and former elected officials and community leaders who've endorsed me. I'm honored to have earned their endorsements and have done so because they have the personal knowledge of what I can do and how I bring people together. With all of the difficulties of the past year, the next few years are an opportunity for Highland Park to reset, recharge, and reevaluate. If elected, my experience of working collaboratively with sister governments and residents will impact the community in a positive way. I look forward to that.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia, your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Andres Tapia, and I'm running for Highland Park City Council. I'm a values-driven and results-oriented business leader, a strategist, a nationally recognized diversity and thought leader, a family man, a community volunteer, the son of a Peruvian dad and an American mom who grew up multicultural and bilingual in Lima, Peru, who came up to the US for college and who is now a 30-year Highland Park resident. I'm also commissioner in our city's Housing Commission. This background and the experiences that went with it have made me fully ready to be a civic leader at this vital juncture we are in as a city. The pandemic took much from us, personally and as a community. There's been a loss of lives, health, schooling, jobs, celebrations, vacations, even the simple pleasure of gathering with friends and family. As a community, there has been further deterioration of economic vibrancy that even before COVID have been taking hits. Though we start to see the light at the end of the COVID tunnel and the ability to resume the fullness of our lives, I've talked to hundreds of you, and consistently the shuttered stores and restaurants downtown make us sad, as well as worried about our economic and communal future. Good news is we now have a unique opportunity in the wake of so much being upended to not only recover and rebuild, but to reimagine. I'm running with a vision for an even more welcoming and thriving Highland Park, a city that thrives economically, environmentally, and artistically, attracts young families, is a sanctuary for seniors who seek calm, beauty, and community vibrancy, is inclusive of all religions, races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic levels. What will it take to achieve this? It starts with the economics. Revitalize business districts, increase our sales tax revenues, and attract more families to move here, as well as visitors who see Highland Park as a destination. More revenues speed up taking care of our infrastructure, provide optimal public safety, enhance the reduction of our carbon footprint, take care of our most vulnerable, and introduce even more experiential amenities for our residents. I'm a results-oriented bridge builder who can help lead us to a more prosperous future in a Highland Park where everyone feels they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stone, your opening.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. The Highland Park League has been a significant force in educating people about voting and the importance of local elections. Problems at the national level have made people more aware of how important it is to elect good people locally. There's so much uncertainty in the world and in our country right now. 2 of our city council members are retiring. My experience and breadth of knowledge mean that I will hit the ground running on day 1, continuing the work I've been doing for our community. Long before I ever thought of running for council, I was working on city issues here in Highland Park. I'm a strong advocate and experienced leader. You can see the results of what I've done already. During my time on council, we worked hard to maintain a balanced budget and a AAA bond rating while reducing greenhouse gas emissions and developing a long-term capital plan to efficiently maintain our roads and bridges. I've worked to make Highland Park a more walkable community, to make our streets safer for pedestrians. This not only improves the environment and makes Highland Park a nicer place to live, but also makes our downtown more vibrant, which supports our small businesses and increases sales tax revenue, in turn keeping property taxes as low as possible. I grew up in Highland Park and have a deep understanding of our community, not just what makes it great, but what needs improvement. I've developed a track record of leadership on important issues and know how to build consensus and deal with tough issues in a practical way. We need to elect people with strong leadership and management experience. I'm running for re-election so I can continue to serve the residents of Highland Park. I hope that I can count on your vote.
Thank you. Ms. Ross, your opening. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Yumi Ross. Thank you to the League for organizing this event. I greatly value what you do. As a woman of Japanese American descent, I want to express my great sadness and concern over the murders of Asian women in Georgia. Every city must be vigilant, redouble efforts to educate about all racism, xenophobia, and protect vulnerable residents. I plan to help if elected to council. I've always tried to support the most vulnerable. I've lived here 23 years. My husband is a 3rd-generation Highland Parker. Our children are graduates of both districts. I'm a Harvard-trained architect, longtime American Institute of Architects member. It would be very helpful to have an architect's perspective on council. I have a long history of service throughout Highland Park. I served 8 years on elected 112 school board, where I dealt with major issues that impact our city. I was 112 board liaison to our city's Human Relations Commission, our city's Green Alliance. I was also liaison to NSSED, the 112 Education Foundation, and Community the Anti-Drug. I served on Superintendent Lubefeld's Architects Advisory Committee for Northwood and Edgewood construction projects. I still serve on 112's foundation and as co-president of the 113 Education Foundation. I also serve on the board of directors of the Art Center of Highland Park. And additionally, I served on the Art Institute's Architecture Board and the Women's Board of the MCA, Museum of Contemporary Art. I co-founded the successful Real 112 Film Festival. If elected, I can leverage my strong contacts in the arts to help Highland Park. Arts are not only cultural, but powerful economic drivers, and we already have wonderful resources in our city that can help us thrive. My background as an architect, extensive service throughout Highland Park, strong contacts in the arts would be invaluable to our city, particularly to help us emerge from the pandemic. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Flores Weiskopf.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this important event so voters may learn about the candidates. I'm Lori Flores Weiskopf, a lifelong Highland Park resident and the daughter of Guatemalan immigrants. To raise us here, my mom cleaned houses and was a nanny, while my dad was a custodian at Highland Park Hospital, and thanks to their sacrifice, I'm in my 10th year as an elected Park District Commissioner. I also serve as an advisory board member for Community Partners for Affordable Housing. I am running for City Council because I care deeply about our community and want to be a voice for you. My background is in communications, including public relations for the Chicago Bulls during the Jordan era. Now I work at UPS as an account manager and help businesses grow. I work with small businesses who are struggling and would bring that expertise to help Highland Park businesses grow and recover from pandemic-related setbacks. At the Park District, I worked on the master plan, a long-range capital plan giving direction to projects at the district. I would bring the same skills to promote fiscal stability, a Highland Park core priority. I also co-chaired the Rosewood Beach renovation project, so I know how to listen to residents' concerns and see a project to a successful, award-winning completion. I know the dedication a council member must make to be effective, and I hope to have that opportunity.
Thank you. Jamie Bay.
Thank you. I'm Jamie Bay. I would also like to first thank the Highland Park League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I'm running for city council because I know I have the qualifications that will help address the most important issues we face. I'm a longtime resident of Highland Park. My wife Elisa and I, along with our twin boys, have lived for over 20 years. I noticed something different about Highland Park years ago that really impacted our decision in choosing to live here. I noticed that many people I had met who were raised here ended up returning to Highland Park to raise their families. That's not often true of many other communities, and it really caused me to suspect that there must be something about Highland Park. After living here over 20 years, I can definitely say my suspicions have been confirmed. In addition to living here, I work here. I own Love's Yogurt on Elm Place. I currently serve our community as a commissioner on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've also served on different advisory boards, coached several different sports teams, and have volunteered for various projects and programs. I bring no personal agenda to the City Council other than to serve our community to the best of my abilities. The pandemic has been and remains our most important concern. Highland Park does not have its own health department, but we can and must work with Lake County to assist in any way possible with getting people vaccinated. We should also remain vigilant in our habits until the science dictates otherwise. While we have wonderful business districts in Highland Park, including downtown and in Ravinia, between the economy and the pandemic, businesses have been struggling. These issues need to continue to be addressed with special attention being paid to our future and the vibrancy of our city. I'm also an attorney and a real estate broker. I understand and believe in our core principles of fiscal stability, public safety, and improving our infrastructure. I support the need for diversity and balance. The need to work to address environmental concerns and striving for sustainability is also of paramount importance. Elect me to City Council and you will have a voice for progress, balance, sustainability, and fairness. Once again, I'm Jamie Bay. I'm asking for your vote for City Council on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move to questions. Candidate Tapia, you will answer first. The first question deals with the topic of your priorities. And the question is, what is one of your top priorities for Highland Park, and how would you go about accomplishing that?
And my number one priority is the post-COVID economic recovery. The city has done a lot of things, and we can talk about the many good things they've done, but I believe we got to do a lot more and do it in an accelerated manner. There's a lot of money on the sidelines that has been not invested due to the pandemic that is about to be unleashed because as the economy heats up. And I want to make sure that we have those funds coming to us in terms of investment, not only in terms of retail businesses, but restaurants and coffee shops, as well as corporate offices moving here, light industrial, and other forms of economic activity. I have a 3-point plan for that. 1, sit down with the landlords and current business owners about ways in which they can invest to make their establishments more attractive as well as our downtowns. 2, address the real or imagined complaint that Highland Park is too expensive and too complex to do business in. And 3, we change our economic model of transactional retail to experiential retail. Think about transactional. I need belt and shoes, think Amazon. Experiential retail, I want to have a good time with my friends in a tactile way while shopping and dining. Think basketball courts in the Nike store, think Italy at downtown Chicago. We have to take advantage of our assets, our beauty, our architectural, historical layout, our people, and the arts to make the compelling story that Highland Park is a great place to invest in for business.
Thank you. Ms. Stone, the same question.
Thank you. In the near term, the city faces 2 significant issues: recovering from the economic impacts of the pandemic and addressing the effects of climate change. The city must continue to make tough financial decisions so we can provide the high level of services our residents expect within tight budgetary constraints as we recover from the pandemic. I agree with some of what Mr. Tapia has just said in terms of bringing back vibrancy to our retail environment. And we need to bring more innovative ideas to help our business community regain its vibrancy. Climate change has financial implications for the city as extreme weather damages our infrastructure. We have flooding, We have larger storms. We have a lot of issues like the freeze and thaw that impact our roads. And I will continue my leadership to make environmentally responsible choices that save the city money and to ensure that the city's infrastructure is built to withstand these stronger storms and bigger temperature fluctuations brought on by climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross, same question. Please unmute yourself. Wait, unmute yourself. And then we'll start the time again. Okay, great.
Thank you. My top priorities, I mean, all of our top priority has to be the COVID economic recovery. I do want to add that helping with vaccinations will be a top priority, especially the elderly who have, trouble with technology or can have trouble with technology. Perhaps having somebody assigned to help them with this. I think Dr. Fauci said it best that we need to strengthen community health centers. I've spoken to business owners, real estate developers, as well as retail brokers to get a sense of the problem and what needs to be addressed. Everyone I speak to is deeply worried. They tell me that drastic measures need to be taken, which could include, having the city help to subsidize rents, helping put money into buildings that need renovation, have the city bridge the gap in costs to open a new business by waiving taxes or license fees, fast track processes, maybe promise a 48-hour, turnaround for everything, including permits, and assign a city staff member to work exclusively on marketing real estate and inviting businesses and brokers to tour empty spaces, advertise as much as possible, put it in the news that Highland Park is coming back, put it on social media, offer grants to open new businesses, host more festivals, and at each festival have maps available to show where vacant space is available, perhaps put QR codes on each vacant storefront so that people can scan all the details of every empty space immediately. And how do we, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Flores Weisskopf.
Well, for me, the core and top priority is always the safety of our residents. But equally important now is to help our local businesses recover from the pandemic, revitalize our business district, and help with the empty storefronts to help our economy. As I mentioned, I have experience with small businesses as an account manager for UPS. I understand the issues our businesses are facing. Prior to the pandemic, our businesses were challenged, and now they're struggling even more. I've met with several local business owners and listened to their concerns and ideas as to how to move forward. I'd like to see Highland Park continue to offer incentives and grants to help our businesses recover from the pandemic and continue with the business summits to help get new ideas from our business owners and to publicize all Highland Park offers. Highland Park is also undertaking a strategic plan for business, and I'd like that to involve out-of-the-box thinking so we can come up with ideas that will make an impact because the business models have changed, which is something I have seen at my work at UPS. And in order to attract new businesses, we must support our current local businesses. It is their success that will aid in recovery of our community. So let's support our businesses and help our local shops and restaurants thrive again.
Thank you. Mr. Bay.
Thank you. I think while we all agree that the pandemic remains a top priority, hopefully we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The issue that remains and predates the pandemic is that of the revitalization of our downtown business district, as others have pointed out. I think we know that retail has changed forever. More people shop online. The brick and mortar stores are not quite as viable as they used to be. And we have to figure out how we can go forward and find businesses that will be viable, both short-term and long-term, and that's going to involve a certain amount of change. I've already reached out and talked to several of the property owners. I've talked to several of the business owners. I am a business owner. The idea is to make a plan to find out what, again, can take the place of the more traditional business model. I think there's a number of opportunities here to kind of redo things. I think one of the plans, one of the things I'm hearing is that we need to have greater density in the downtown business area, that we need to do more mixed use developments, bring in residential, commercial, put more feet on the ground, in order to have more customers for the businesses that are there. I can tell you as a business owner that if you don't have customers, it doesn't matter how good your product is, how good your service is, you won't do business. So I think that's one of the keys, is to figure out ways to attract businesses that can survive, make a plan, and implement that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lidewer.
Recovering from COVID-19 pandemic and emerging stronger than before is really the most pressing issue. My priority would be to help lead our local economic development initiatives to retain and attract new business with emphasis on rebuilding creatively post-pandemic. As a Plan and Design Commissioner, the most important land use commission and recommending body to the city, I've worked to accommodate petitioners, that's businesses, public entities, and individuals alike, to ensure that the projects are successful. And despite its ravages, the pandemic is an opportunity for Highland Park to reset and reinvigorate. Mayor Rahm Emanuel said it perfectly: crisis is an opportunity. And I say to correct that in the context, what we need to do is rebound strongly, being mindful of budgetary constraints, but the emphasis has to be on a creative business development. Getting rid of some of the restrictions on the central business district in downtown Highland Park was one way to open up and accept more new businesses. I'd continue the outreach and the business development that currently exists, but there's always room for improvement and growth. Streamlining procedures and restrictions are necessary right now to make Highland Park more welcoming to business.
Thank you. Most of you have now answered my second question, so I'm going to move on to the third one and get back to that one later on. The next topic is affordable housing. And Ms. Stone, you're going to be the first one to answer, and here is the question. How do you feel about what Highland Park does to address affordable housing? What would you continue or change?
Thank you. I would like to start by saying that I'm on the board of the Community Partners for Affordable Housing, which is a community land trust that does a lot of work here in Highland Park and was started in Highland Park as the Highland Park Housing Trust. I have been working on affordable housing issues through that organization. The city, there's a bit of confusion between what the city does and what SEPA does. SEPA provides housing, both rental and ownership units, to people who require affordable housing here in Highland Park. And I think that that is a tremendous service. And the city does support that work, and I would hope that the city could continue to support it through its Housing Trust Fund. In addition, the city has an inclusionary zoning ordinance where we require a certain number of units in new construction to be affordable. And that is something that has been recently revamped and clarified, that program, but I would continue that program as well. And the third piece of the pie, I guess, is the city owns some units through its Housing Trust Fund in certain buildings. And I think that those three things taken together are a very good way to make sure that we provide some affordable housing within Highland Park. It's an area in which we've been a leader among our local communities, and I would continue to do all of those things and hope to increase it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross.
Thank you. I care about affordable housing a lot. My household does. My husband actually until recently chaired the Housing Commission. The inclusionary housing ordinance has been in existence for, I believe, nearly 20 years. We are way ahead of other communities in our support for it. The ordinance calls for 20% of new construction of multifamily developments. After density bonuses, there's an effective rate of approximately 15% that is required. And then there's the option separately for developers to pay a fee in lieu to build less. This fee goes into a housing trust fund to build whatever affordable that the Housing Commission wishes to support. For example, scattered site or single family housing. There's variety, it is fluid, and it should be fluid. It's important to maintain a diverse community because these are vibrant communities. People have a misconception that affordable means people on the dole. In fact, it helps firefighters, teachers, healthcare workers, young people we want and need in our community, and we need them to be able to afford to live here. People say it's watered down, but I've come to believe that the goal is to provide flexibility in terms of the types and the locations of affordable housing. They can donate to SEPA, this fund can, housing fund can donate to SEPA, or they can buy units in other developments. So I'm not against fee in lieu. One has to look at things case by case. And the Housing Trust Fund can be used for a variety of things, including social services for low-income families.
Thank you. Ms. Flores-Weiskopf.
I'm a proud advisory member for SEPA. And as a youngster, we experienced struggles, and I know how much it helped my family to be in temporary subsidized housing. I just had a fruitful conversation with the Collaboration Committee Housing Initiative about this topic, and in researching their question, I learned a lot myself. So Highland Park is a leader in affordable housing. Our inclusionary housing ordinance, IHO, is something to be proud of. Many families have safe, stable, decent housing in the community due to these efforts. The IHO specifically states a preference that units should be constructed on site. This is yet another opportunity for inclusion in our community. My position is that if these standards and criteria need to be applied, they should be so done rigorously. The Housing Commission evaluates proposal and makes a recommendation to the City Council. I would like to see this evaluation be taken seriously of the developer's proposal, and a more thought process and a more thorough process through this would include debate as well. I'm a proponent of affordable housing. I have seen the difference it makes in families. And in order for this to happen, we need to educate and train our housing commissioners to equip them with skills to evaluate whether their proposals meet the standards in ordinance. And for the record, I'll say that I prefer, instead of saying affordable housing, I think inclusionary housing is really more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bay.
Thank you. I also am a proponent of affordable housing. I've read the code. I think it's a good start that can be built on. I grew up in Skokie, and I noticed the difference from when I was a kid that more of the people that taught, worked in the community also lived in the community. Not so much the case thus far in Highland Park, and that's the way it should be. I think affordable housing encourages diversity. It encourages, it's good for our economy and for a vibrant community. I think it's there's very little downside to it. I agree that for the most part, there's a strong preference that under the Affordable Housing Act that units should be built on site if possible. The fee in lieu provision exists for a reason. I think if there is a compelling need for a developer to be allowed to exercise that provision, there has to be standards, clear standards set up in order to determine whether or not a given project is eligible either for off-site units or for contributing to the Housing Trust Fund. Again, I just think there's no downside to affordable housing. It's something that we need to expand even further upon, even though Highland Park is already a pioneer in the field. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Littler.
I completely support affordable housing and think it's the strength of our community that we've codified our support of inclusionary affordable housing in all multiple dwellings over 10 units going forward. We were amongst the first communities to ensure these protections, but going forward as a city, we need to ensure enforcement. As a commissioner at Plan and Design, I've reviewed excellent plans for new multiple dwellings in Highland Park. While I balance the proposals, the community good, and look at the proposals with a holistic approach, I respect that developers may not always be able to meet our requirements for affordable housing units, but the fee in lieu should be the exception, not the rule. Once those units are lost, there's very little chance of getting them back. While the fee in lieu does go toward affordable housing projects, we must work closely to monitor that, in fact, wherever practicable, there's compliance and affordable units are available on site as required by ordinance per project. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia.
Yeah, as a current housing commissioner, I'm very excited that there's 100% support for inclusionary housing among all the candidates. So that provision in our zoning code will be in great hands, no matter who ends up being elected, continue to be. Among the proponents of inclusionary affordable housing, there is a legitimate debate about this cash in lieu issue, and it's a very important one. And I understand the rationale for, bird in the hand of making it all, sites on, all the affordable housing right on site. I actually like the combination of the majority of it being on site, but having the flexibility that if the case has been made well, the sum of it could be done cash in lieu. And why is that? Because cash in lieu affords us the flexibility to diversify our affordable housing inventory. So it's not all rental units. It could be detached single-family homes. We can scatter the affordable housing throughout the city in an inclusionary way. It's sort of a best practice as opposed to concentrated in certain locations. And so I like the flexibility, but contain the cash in lieu within very important limits, and the debate around that is very important. We do have a dilemma that many developers will say that they don't want to develop or won't develop in Highland Park because of the affordable housing. And I believe that affordable housing is what makes us a strong community, the fact that we have a very progressive unit zone on that. And we must take into consideration the economic issues, but I think we're in a very good place to do that.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question, and Ms. Ross, you'll be the first to answer that. And the topic is your background. What skills or life experiences
Wait, you just were on mute, so we didn't hear half of your question. You're on mute now, Karen.
Okay. All right, I will start over. Ms. Ross, you will be the first to answer the next question. And the topic is your background. And the question is, what skills or life experiences distinguish you from your opponents?
Okay, I'm on mute here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm running because I'm an architect, and I believe an architect's perspective will be very helpful in council. And I've served throughout our community. I've served in so many ways that I've already mentioned, including 8 years on elected school board during some of the most challenging years in the district. And I realize that a terrible public health crisis is something else, and my heart goes out to school districts now. But when I served, we dealt with issues that affect every resident in our community. And I feel all of these experiences and my background, and certainly as an architect, are uniquely helpful to council work. And I'm passionate about serving community. It's why I run for office at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Flores Weiskopf?
Well, my personal story is knowing hardship and challenges growing up in this community and coming out with successes thanks to the support and resources available in Highland Park. These challenges have provided me with a different perspective. I have 10 years of local government experience and knowledge from serving as a commissioner for our park district, which provides me with transferable skills to use towards a new city council role. My leadership on the Rosewood Beach renovation project is an example of how I listen to residents' concerns and by considering the input bettered the project. I guided the project from conception to completion. My work on the master plan exhibits fiscal stability and prioritizing projects. Proper budgeting brought about successful on-budget renovations of the rec center, Sunset Valley Golf Course, and the exciting conversion of the Highland Park Country Club into the preserve of Highland Park. My professional communications background has taught me the importance of open communications and of being accessible to residents. My experience and understanding and love of our community make me an ideal candidate.
Thank you. Mr. Bay?
Thank you. Well, I'm an attorney, which I'm hoping most people will not hold against me. I also have a strong background in real estate, but probably the most significant difference between myself and the other candidates is I'm a business owner. I've owned a business and operated a business in Highland Park that's existed for over 35 years. I've also represented landlords, I've represented tenants. I've been a landlord and a tenant myself, so I think I have probably the most experience as far as actually operating a business, dealing with landlords, dealing with tenants, dealing with property owners, in order to know what it's like. And I think I therefore have a better perspective. I have access to the property owners. I've talked to several of them already, talked to several business owners already. And I think I'm best equipped to do what needs to be done, at least ask the right questions, figure out what we can do to revitalize the downtown area, which I think is one of the most important issues that we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lidower.
I'd say the first thing that distinguishes me, well, my background is also as an attorney, as an educator. I think I'm a little bit of a mixed bag when I come to you, and that is because in a way, I have a lot of previous experience and understanding, having been on the school board for the 8 years and the last 3 years on plan and design. But I also bring a fresh face to this governing body with a little bit of experience so that I feel I could start from the beginning running on the first day of work. I will say that I've raised my family here over the last 20 years, but before that we lived in New York City and in central Brooklyn. Our kids were in a very different community. I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I have 2 children who have left this country, served and done things outside of the United States, but have some returned. So I bring a perspective of really looking globally at issues, bringing it local, and a community that is somewhat different from our own, but knowing that this is really home in the Midwest, and it's been a wonderful experience and ride. I'm ready to go on day 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia.
Yes, among all these admirable candidates, I'm the only business executive in the group that has large-scale strategic business experience. I have worked with my Korn Ferry, where I'm a senior partner, and I'm the Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist. And I work with CEOs and the largest multinationals around the world to help them leverage the diversity, their talent through their inclusive leadership to not only have greater optimization of their talent, but to reach the diverse marketplaces that are out there that have led to multi-million-dollar revenue increases for our clients. And also I'm an innovator at Korn Ferry, and I come up with new solutions and I architect them that have led to multi-million-dollar solutions for our organization, Korn Ferry. I bring a fresh perspective, being a writer, being a thought leader, being an innovator, being a systemic thinker. And that's the kind of leadership that I think Highland Park needs as we rise up to the challenge of a post-COVID economic recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stone.
Thank you. After years of involvement in our community, I first ran for council to accelerate the pace of change on environmental issues, make our streets safer for cyclists and pedestrians, and use my experience in nonprofit management to help our community. I work well with my colleagues and I've gotten good results. That's why so many of my colleagues are endorsing me. As a councilwoman, I've been a strong advocate for our residents, and I have a record of success. I'm known as a consensus builder and always work collaboratively with our sister governments to meet the needs of Highland Park residents. During my time on council, we have maintained a balanced budget and AAA bond rating, taken action to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions, developed a long-term capital plan to efficiently maintain roads, bridges, sewers, and our water treatment plant, filled gaps in the sidewalk network, achieved recognition as a bike-friendly community, streamlined the permit process for solar installations, provided support to small businesses, and more. To me, an important marker that I can handle the job is my commitment to the day-to-day effort that makes these accomplishments happen. People are sometimes surprised by how prepared I am, but I believe that it's my responsibility as your councilwoman. My ability to work with people with views different from my own, the care I take to research issues, and the way I listen to my constituents is ultimately what makes me an accomplished councilwoman ready to take on another term. Thank you.
Thank you. The next topic for the question is the environment. And Ms. Flores-Weisskopf, you'll be the first to answer. And here is the question. What is your position on moving Highland Park to be more green environmentally? And if applicable, how do you propose to do this?
At the Park District, our leadership encouraged sustainability measures to be taken, and we supported being environmentally conscious stewards. The Rosewood Beach project renovation, which I co-chaired, included installation of permeable pavement parking lot, installation of geothermal heating and cooling system for the interpretive center, and the Park District also replaced all waste receptacles in parks with joint recycling and waste receptacles. We installed electric car charging stations at Sunset Valley Golf Club and converted the Highland Park Country Club golf course, now the preserve of Highland Park, to native plantings. I will bring this experience, commitment, and forward-thinking solutions to my role at City Council. For me, zero emission standards at new buildings should be our new standard. Additions to our community in the form of new housing are in planning, making it the right time for a green review of our building codes. This includes requiring, to me, not only EV charging, but also renewable energy sources for all heating, cooling, and lighting. And I would really like to see a collaborative approach by our city, park district, and schools to revitalize Go Green campaigns. Recycling and not letting the water run has been ingrained in our kids. Imagine the level they could take environmental sustainability. We need and must protect natural resources for future generations.
Thank you. Mr. Bay.
Thank you. Yes, when it comes to the environment, I think succinctly put, there is nothing that we shouldn't do to improve the environment or combat climate change as quickly as possible. Should have been done yesterday. Therefore, I think we need to do all we can as soon as possible. I know Highland Park has a good program as far as recycling and composting. I think we need to expand upon that to educate the public to realize that it's not that difficult to do that, and it does make a difference. I'd like to see more solar and renewable energy. I'd like to see our building code change to require that new construction requires electric charging stations with the hopes of encouraging more electric cars. I'd like to see the vehicles that are owned in the city to be, when safe and feasible, to be converted into electric vehicles as well. I'd like to think of different ways to phase out the one-time use of plastic bags to see if we could get more into reusables. In other words, do everything possible in every way that makes sense to make things more sustainable and have less of an impact, and hopefully start to reverse the impact on our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lidewer.
Increasing recycling, composting, and waste reduction can improve our bottom line and protect our fragile planet. Continuing our partnerships with Swalco and Lakeshore Recycling, as well as other grassroots organizations, is crucial to boosting participation and awareness of these initiatives, which are easy methods for reducing the volume of our waste stream. The city does an excellent job of promoting Sustainability Sundays on social media and providing educational materials. Education is something we need to continue to work on in collaboration with our sister governments, especially our schools. I witnessed firsthand in districts 112 and 113, students becoming aware of recycling programs and better habits when lunch programs were changed to prohibit the use of clamshells. Students are our future, and more often than not, they carry the message about the importance of sustainable practices to the home and throughout life. Hence, a joint initiative between the schools and the city would further boost awareness and participation. I'd love to build off the community solar initiative. We have dozens of buildings, public buildings, and even a few brownfield properties that would be perfect for generating solar energy. We also could add to the to add electric vehicle charging capability. As a commissioner, I recently reviewed Tesla's plan to add charging stations in the Target parking lot on 41. Working with our businesses locally is key to improving environmental initiatives in our community, and this project was an additional step in the right direction.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia.
It is no secret that climate change is an existential threat actually to humanity, and that's not an overstatement. And we see things happening at a global, federal level that are important and have to be accelerated. But a town like ours of 30,000, we have our part to play, and we have to do everything possible in every action that we do, how we build our buildings, how we lay out our parks, how we recycle our consumables, to be contributing to lowering the carbon footprint, because every bit matters for the health of our residents here, but also the larger planet that we live in. You know, care for our environment is also a through line in the core priorities of our city. A green infrastructure is cost efficient, makes life healthier for all, and it adds to our community vibrancy. One other thing I would add as a business leader is that I think about change management. We have to prepare our citizens intellectually, pragmatically, but also emotionally for the changes that need to happen. And sometimes the changes we need to make to be greener actually require changes in habits. You know, things that we're used to doing, things that we don't quite understand. So I would advocate, on top of all the great work that the city council has already been doing, and that Kim has also been a leader in, that we think through the through line of how do we prepare citizenry for the new habits, the new changes, through education, clear communication, and addressing the emotional resistances that may exist.
Thank you. Ms. Stone.
Thank you. I've been working on climate change professionally since 1988. I'm the only candidate with a deep understanding of the critical importance of reducing our carbon footprint in an economically sustainable way. This is better for our lungs and our wallets. Municipalities can be a driving force for change when it comes to environmental action, since cities have jurisdiction over building and zoning codes, fleet purchases, and other infrastructure. Some of the initiatives that have moved forward as the result of my efforts include a greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal, availability of community solar for residents at a discount off the ComEd rate, purchase of energy efficient equipment for city buildings and hybrid and electric vehicles for our fleet, improvements to make our streets safer for all users so people can safely get around by foot and bicycle, permeable pavement and bioswales to absorb stormwater in new parking lots, a ban on coal tar sealants, energy efficient LED lights, a pollinator garden along the McClory Trail, and electric vehicle charging publicly available. If re-elected, I hope to continue raising the bar, further reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and also modeling sustainable practices for our residents and municipalities. Some of the things on my to-do list for next year, or this year actually, include requiring electric vehicle charging wiring for new construction, and working to make sure that our new fire station is a highly energy efficient building. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross.
I agree with the previous statements that this is an existential threat. This is an issue I care deeply about and have been involved in since 2007. I was on the executive committee for Cool Globes, a global warming awareness project, where I also worked on creating a curriculum for middle school students for the Chicago public school system. I spoke on behalf of the team at the United Nations for a conference there in 2008. As the District 112 strategic planning team knows, I advocated passionately for it to be included in the 5-year, that environmental sustainability be included in the 5-year strategic plan for the district. District 112 saved over $1 million in energy costs. We were really proud of that. I was honored to be District 112 board representative to the city's Green Alliance with other representatives from Highland Park Hospital, the library, and 113 assistant principal. I served with Councilwoman Kim Stone on it. I love that work so much. The city has a green plan. I would work to update it, reinforce it, and make sure, most importantly, that it is meaningful and impactful. Education is key.
Thank you. The next question has to do with what's going well in Highland Park. And Mr. Bay, you'll be the first to answer. And the question is, in your opinion, what is going well in Highland Park and what would you do to keep that going?
Thank you. I think the Highland Park City Council has recently, and by recently I mean within the last several years, established 4 core principles for the role of government in Highland Park. Those principles being fiscal responsibility, public safety, improvement of our infrastructure, and the vibrancy of the city. I think there's certainly further work to be done in each of those areas, but I think that's a very good framework. So I think that's going well. I think for the most part, the city has done a good job in exercising fiscal responsibility and putting forth a budget that makes sense. We're well capitalized. We've been able to maintain a AAA bond rating and able to make it through the difficulties that were presented by the pandemic. Public safety, I think we do a good job of keeping the citizens safe. There are long-term plans to replace our infrastructure that needs to be replaced. We are an older community. We live in an area where there's a lot of change in the climate, one extreme to the other in the climate, which makes it challenging to keep our roads and bridges and everything in a good state of repair. And probably the all-inclusive most important thing is vibrancy, which includes the quality of life, including increased diversity, including making Highland Park a place where you can work, play, live, feel good about your lifestyle. And I hope to see that continue.
Thank you. Ms. Lidewer.
I think there's 2 main areas that we really are beginning to excel in, and one of them is very exciting because it's new. There's a lot of construction going on in Highland Park, and that tells me that we have a future that's very promising in terms of the initiatives that we take forward. It started a couple of years ago, I think, when we saw the improvement at our high schools and the referendum that went through, and now we're seeing it with 112. And Highland Park is following suit with many, many housing projects which will bring more feet on the ground. If you look at the repurposing of the 6th Fifth Avenue building and the number of people that it's going to bring in, it's a very exciting time for us, because what will follow from that, if we buy locally and live locally, is the growth in our downtown. But another thing that I think in a horrible year we've done excellent at is our communication and our transparency, our willingness and wantingness to include everyone in communications. The transparency on our website is wonderful. It lets people know what's going on, what's coming down the pike, who to turn to, how to work with it. And I have to say that the city has excelled and been ahead of the curve on that in a very trying time. When people can't communicate with one another because they can't get together in public forums, this is what we have to rely on. And I think we're at a step ahead in being able to take the town to the next level, because we're already prepared to do that. And Highland Park's done a great job at that.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia.
Yeah, I would check the box on the 4 top priorities City Hall has done. I would check the box on some of the business-friendly things that have been done, including the increasing population density in the downtown area for the reasons that have already been stated. I would add the beautification of several business districts. We have 9, it's not just downtown. And there's efforts that paying attention to throughout the city what we need to do. And there's more ideas on the table about what to do that currently, and things that I could bring to the table as well. I also want to praise the leadership during the pandemic, that there was a lot of dilemmas in an uncertain, scary time. And I think we were under steady hand about when to close and stores or services, and mask mandates, even when they were somewhat at the discretion of City Hall, and other things were mandated by the federal or by state. But I think there was good communication, and I felt in good hands, actually, as a citizen, by a leadership. I would add that the other highlight is that we are an inclusive community. When I moved here 30 years ago, one of the highlights for me as someone who grew up in Peru was that I really felt welcome. The diversity of religion, socioeconomic, race, ethnicity, also generationally, the number of seniors, the number of young people, young families is very, adds to the vitality of the city and makes us vibrant, and augurs well for our economic revitalization, because diversity is an economic strength.
Thank you. Ms. Stone?
Thank you. I was involved in creating the core priorities that several of the candidates have mentioned so far, and I'm proud of that. I think that the city does a very good job of being proactive at maintaining our infrastructure without increasing the tax burden. We have a fabulous staff. We have been able to cut the budget without significantly impacting services due to improvements in efficiencies. We have funded our pensions so that our pension obligations will be met within the time frame that we need to meet them, and with less of a burden on our taxpayers. Our capital plan is 10 years. Most municipalities have a 5-year capital plan, but our city manager, in her zeal for maintenance of infrastructure, decided we should have a 10-year plan so that we can really plan ahead and make sure that we achieve efficiencies. So when we repave a road, for example, we also do the water infrastructure on that road. And that makes it cost less, but it also makes the inconvenience to residents a shorter time frame. The city is committed to being welcoming and inclusive. We have a statement against hate. Our police department was one of the first in the state to commit to principles of inclusive and equitable policing. And that's reflected in their training as well. And the new zoning that's already been mentioned in the areas around downtown is yielding results with larger residential buildings that will bring more feet on the street and more vibrancy to our downtown. And the other thing is we've incorporated sustainability, which is a wonderful thing, into our operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross?
Highland Park has worked hard to have a balanced budget. It has a AAA bond rating, which is similar to District 112, in which I worked for 8 years. And that positions it well in case the city ever needs to borrow money for projects. I know that city coffers have been depleted during the pandemic. And I think that the city, I certainly believe that the city does inclusionary housing really well. As I mentioned previously, it's a leader in that area. I want to throw in there that I think that we can leverage the arts to help Highland Park even more. And I do agree that it's important that we added more apartments here. More people will move here, and spend money here. So I think in all of those areas, it has done well.
Thank you. Ms. Flores Weisskopf.
Well, the city has done a lot of wonderful things. The city was extremely creative in supporting businesses through the pandemic. Creative thinking such as closing the road in Ravinia so it would promote dining out was a brilliant idea. I also, for me personally, it's the council and the mayor. They kept us safe while we navigated through the pandemic. This was nothing that we messed around with. And also the communications from the city, I think, is excellent. Information is available on the website. We get newsletters that keep us informed all year round. But for me, I'm most proud of our powerful statement against hate that our council adopted in 2019. I believe that the statement reflects and reinforces our community's values of being progressive and compassionate.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Ms. Lidower, and the topic is money or fiscal issues. And the question is, what, if any, fiscal issues are of concern in Highland Park?
Well, I think right now we're extremely strapped, as we always are. Obviously, legally, we are responsible to have a balanced budget. Lake County charges higher property taxes than any other county. One needs to understand that the city only receives 7% of the revenue that is collected by local governments. And frankly, 2/3 of it goes to the schools. So I know how it's spent firsthand. And that's important because frankly, education grows the value of our properties. And when people move here, they consider our schools. So top-notch schools help us recoup our investments. But with all the multitudes of government, we need to keep our coffers growing. And I would look to creative ways to bring in additional funds to supplement what we're doing right now through our taxes, to take that burden off of the taxpayer and to assure that we're working with the taxpayer. I've seen that once before where you can be creative, and by putting in your reserves, you are also helping. At District 113, with our second successful referendum, we used reserve funds to say to taxpayers, we're going to help out with this. That's how much skin we have in the game. The city's cut back on so much. We took all of our temporary workers and we had to lay people off. And personnel is our highest cost, but we can't give up that money. So it's really a question of bringing more money into our coffers and working together with our sister agencies to ensure that there's no duplication and to make sure that we have the time to get through it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tapia.
We are funded in large part by the sales tax revenue. And so that many things that we have put out today go to this issue. Until we have a vibrant economic investment and development in the various different business districts throughout Highland Park, we will be constrained on the very things we want to do, accelerate our infrastructure upgrade, to be able to accelerate our green initiatives, better able to provide for those who are most vulnerable in our community. All these things are tied to our ability to bring in revenue and tied into economic vitality. But there's other forms of revenue. There are already grants from the federal government and from the state and from Lake County and from not-for-profits that the city is already leveraging. And I think we can go after more of that, especially the more creative we get and more imaginative we get in our business solutions and our community vibrancy solutions. And the other thing that we need to look at more carefully is private-public partnerships. Many cities have actually addressed the dilemmas of shortfalls in revenue by collaborating and finding common cause with businesses and other private entities to say that vibrancy of our city is beneficial to all. The city can't carry the whole burden, but we partner, we can all benefit economically as well as socially and artistically and as a community. So I think we got to look at all those different revenue streams for our prosperity.
Thank you. Ms. Stone.
Thank you. Pensions are a big issue. The state sets the level of pension benefits for our public safety employees and requires that we must fully fund these pensions by 2040. We have restructured staff to be more efficient with less people, and we've outsourced some staff and some tasks so that we could put more money into our pension funds earlier on. If we hadn't taken this action, the pension payments would have dramatically increased. And so the city was proactive, and that reduces the total burden on taxpayers. Because of things like this that we can't control, it's really important to control the things that we can. Maintaining a balanced budget and a AAA bond rating, for example, lowers the city's cost of borrowing. My background in nonprofit management taught me to allocate tight budgets to serve many critical needs. And we can also collaborate to save money. For example, Highland Park took over fire operations for Highwood. We consolidated our public safety dispatch system with our neighboring communities, and we use municipal purchasing partnerships wherever possible to keep our costs down. As your councilwoman, my job is to make sure we use our hard-earned taxpayer dollars wisely. To reduce the property tax burden, I have identified grants and advocated for long-term planning that enabled us to receive funding for drainage improvements, lighting upgrades, and other projects. To save money, I've advocated for the purchase of energy-efficient equipment for our buildings and hybrid and electric vehicles for our fleet. And these are all sorts of things that we can control and that we must control so that we can pay for things like pensions that we have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ross.
Thank you. As previously mentioned, the coffers have been depleted by the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, the city was, had more funds. I know that they've cut back on staff and cut back on projects as well. We have apartments coming available, which will mean more residents, which is very helpful. But we need to support businesses. And as I mentioned, I have spoken to business owners, real estate developers, and retail brokers to get a sense of what they feel we need. And I believe it's going to take an investment, more investment from the city to help us recover. And, how do we afford this? The city's going to have to, dig deep to do this. I know it's been hit by the pandemic, and maybe we get creative with, as I mentioned previously, the way District 112 did by possibly floating bonds. Interest rates are really low, but that's just one solution. We have to get very creative and look at all options.
Thank you. Ms. Flores-Weiskopf.
Yes, so these have been wonderful answers, and they've been all across the spectrum. So can you remind me what the question was?
Certainly. This is money fiscal issues. What, if any, fiscal issues are of concern in Highland Park?
Okay. Thank you. Again, great answers, but I was like, where did we start? So we went to so many great places. So obviously the pandemic really hit our community very hard. It hit our city hard. And again, being creative, the city did things like provide relief in the way to residents of eliminating the city sticker, which was a good revenue source for our community. So again, sales tax that was lost because the businesses were struggling and consumers weren't out and buying. So I think that's caused a lot of setback for us. But again, I feel hopeful because there is so much collaboration with the sister governments, with joint purchasing, and even with necessary infrastructure. The city's always seeking grants and being creative with that kind of funding.
Thank you. Mr. Bay.
Thank you. Tough going last on this question, as most of the issues have already been touched upon a little bit. I think most people are under the misconception when they pay a large property tax bill that a large percentage of that goes to the city, and that's absolutely not the truth. As has been mentioned, it's approximately 7% of the revenues from the tax bill goes to the city. The largest pieces go to the Park District and to the school district. As Mr. Tapia had mentioned, our source of revenue that really needs to be augmented and improved upon is our sales tax revenue, and that can only be done by revitalizing the downtown business district. And in order to do that, we've got to think outside of the box, think about new types of development and how to attract the business in there. I know there's other problems involving the state The state has not lived up to some of its obligations to distribute our sales tax revenue in a very timely fashion. The state has also issued mandates which they have not funded. They've ordered us in essence to do things and then told us how we go about paying for it is our own problem. And I don't think that's fair. So we need to talk about that. Also, I agree there should be more partnerships with our neighbors, neighboring communities, exercise the economies of scale, try to save money that way, and otherwise just continue being as fiscally responsible as we can be. Thank you.
Thank you. That is our 6 questions, as I had indicated to you previously, and now we will move to closing statements. And Mr. Bay, you're going to be the first to say your closing statements. That is up to 1 minute.
Still unmuted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates as well, and to all those listening. As a longtime business owner and resident, along with my other qualifications, I bring a combination of experiences that none of the other candidates have to address the issues we face. Retail business has changed forever and will continue to evolve. Different types of development will be necessary to meet the needs of the times and assist in bringing greater vibrancy to our city. I can make sure we establish the meaningful partnerships which will be necessary to accomplish our goals. We need to balance the needs of public safety and fiscal responsibility with the need to achieve diversity and also to address environmental concerns. No one has all the answers. The important thing is to ask the right questions and having the experience necessary to know what works and how to get it done. On the City Council, I will be a voice for progress, balance, sustainability, and fairness. Thank you. Once again, I'm Jamie Bay. I'm asking for your vote for City Council on April 6th.
Thank you. Candidate Flores Weisskopf.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to participate today. As a Latina woman who grew up with humble beginnings in this community, I will bring a different and much needed voice to the council. I'm a passionate individual and bring relevant professional career experience and 10 years of serving on the Park District. I understand how our local government works. I have extensive government budget and planning experience, and in my professional life, I help small businesses grow. I'm ready to hit the ground running to aid our businesses in recovering from pandemic-related setbacks. My leadership style is one of listening to residents, transparency, integrity, and fiscal responsibility. With me on the council, you will get a dedicated and experienced public service servant who focuses on bettering the lives of all Highland Park residents. Our city is one of the best communities on the North Shore, and I want to continue and grow the progressive tradition that keeps us moving forward. I would be honored to be your choice to serve on the City Council.
Thank you. Ms. Ross.
My name is Yumi Ross. I'm an architect who served 8 years on 112 School Board. I've served throughout our city for years. My work is synergistic. Everything informs everything else, which will be very helpful to council work. I've been listening to people's stories throughout our city. Creative ideas abound. We must work together. We can meet the challenge of revitalizing our city during and after the pandemic with a comprehensive, try as many good ideas as possible approach, including promotions, incentives, whatever it takes to bring business here and support existing ones. I believe that what is most important to elected office is one's attitude and approach. One must be responsive, keep an open mind, never forget that there's always more to learn. I will listen to businesses and residents' experiences. No matter how much you think you know, there's always another side to stories. I find that very humbling. Although we face the pandemic's challenges, a sailor once said to me that even when the waters are perfectly still, you can always find a wind if you keep searching. Helpful winds surround us, and I will be relentless in my search for others. Thank you to the League for hosting us.
Thank you. Candidate Stone.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing today's forum and to all of you for caring enough to listen. Decisions made by our local government impact our lives in significant ways. Highland Park can and should be the city that other municipalities look to as an example of smart government and a vibrant, sustainable community. I'm running for re-election to the City Council to build upon the progress I've made to make our streets safe for people of all ages and abilities, reduce our environmental impact, plan and budget to maintain our infrastructure without imposing additional burdens on taxpayers, ensure that there's safe and affordable housing for people of all ages and income levels, and support our local businesses. I have a proven track record of listening to the community, building consensus, and working collaboratively with our sister governments. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Kim Stone, and I ask for your vote on April 6th.
Thank you. Candidate Tapia.
Thank you all for your time today. One of the most joyful aspects of having run in this campaign are the hundreds of conversations I've had with residents, many of them you, who love the city and who have their worries and aspirations about ensuring we rise to the fullness of our potential as a community. The moment is for us to seize with boldness, fresh perspective, and strategic acumen. We have an unexpected twist in our favor, actually, that we must take advantage. In 2020, fueled by the pandemic, we had a 50% increase of new homeowners compared to 2019 as they sought alternatives to city life. This means over 600 new young families. A measure of success that we did rise up to the moment is that 3 to 5 years from now, these new families choose to stay because we collectively made the right decisions and we fully became the kind of city they want to stay in. And for those who have already been here, the city we have always known we could be and have become. I'm Andres Tapia. I am a visionary, results-oriented, inclusive leader. I ask for your vote. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves to represent you in City Hall. It's your chance to vote for an even more welcoming and thriving Highland Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lidewer.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and those observing for your time today. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss the issues facing Highland Park. I raised my family here and chose to stay here because it's home. We all love this community and recognize how special it is, whether it's our lakefront, parks, cultural events, small restaurants and businesses, boutiques, or our desire for economic growth, development, and betterment. Once the pandemic is over, we will come out of this stronger, perhaps with refined priorities, but certainly with a great quality of life and feeling safe in our homes. It's our hometown and it's special. I ask that you entrust a small part of its future to me, someone who's been involved in a leadership role for many years, who's ready to serve and who has the knowledge and experience to get the job done. I'm Annette Lidewer. I'm at the top of the ballot and I ask for your vote. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for being so well prepared, interesting, and knowledgeable. And thank you, audience, for listening. That ends our Highland Park City Council Forum for today. There will be a 5-minute intermission, and then we will begin the Park District Forum. Don't forget to vote and stay tuned for the next forum. Thank you all.
This makes me nervous that you have to wait like this because I thought I was off it.
Elaine, you need to
And
mute.
then,
Elaine, you're not muted.
We are ready to begin when you are, Elaine.
ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Hello again. We are ready for the next debate today among the candidates for Park District. Paula Lawson is going to be our moderator, and she is past president of the League of Women Voters of Illinois and the League of Women Voters of Glencoe, among her many achievements. Paula, will you begin? And again, we thank you.
Paula, you need to unmute.
Thank you, Elaine. Good afternoon. I am Paula Lawson, your moderator for the Candidates Forum for Highland Park District Commissioner. There are 3 candidates running for 2 open positions. This forum is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the League website, Facebook page, and Illinois Voter Guide. The candidates for Park District Commissioner are Brian Kaplan, Jen Freeman, and Joe Peddle. At this time, I would like to review the rules. Each candidate's opening statement is limited to 2 minutes. The order of the opening statements will follow the order that the candidates appear on the ballot. Mr. Kaplan first, followed by Ms. Friedman, and lastly, Mr. Peddle. Candidates will each be given 1.5 minutes to respond to questions posed by the moderator. The order of answering the questions will be alternated. Ms. Friedman will give the first response to the first question, Mr. Peddle the first response to question 2, and so on. Each candidate's closing statement is 1 minute and will be presented in reverse order of the opening statements. The League is providing a timekeeper who will show candidates the remaining time on each statement or question. The timer will show 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. No visual aids are allowed during the forum. Exchanges between candidates will be ruled out of order. The questions to be used were determined prior to the forum. Attendees were able to submit questions. The League reviewed them for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. At this time, I would like to invite the candidates to turn on their videos. And while you're turning on your videos, I'd like to remind you to please mute your audio when you aren't speaking and unmute when it is your turn to speak. This will help eliminate distractions from background noises. Okay. All right. So. One more, just need to change my screen view here. All right, now we are ready to begin. Now let's begin with the opening statements. We'll start with Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Paula Lawson, Nancy Goldberg, Mary Beth Horzog, and the rest of the League of Women Voters. I'm Brian Kaplan. I'm running for Commissioner of the Park District of Highland Park. I moved to Highland Park in 1969, left for college, and moved back within a year of having my first son. Since that time, I have a long history with the Park District. Before I ran for my first seat, I spent over 13 years coaching Park District programs, mainly baseball, basketball. I coached both house league and travel sports. I was on the sports and baseball related committees where I got to know and understand the Park District staff and the role of the Park District in our community. I've spent 10 active years on the Park District Board, 3 as president, 5 as vice president. During those 8 years, I've spent innumerable hours collaborating with District 112 and City of Highland Park. Aside from working on the master plan in Rosewood Beach with my fellow commissioners, I've been the liaison or committee head for the Recreation Center, where I came up with the concept for the renovation, the Sunset Valley Golf Course, NSSRA, where I became a weekly volunteer, baseball and sports and athletic committee. I've also spent the last 12 months as a member of the Finance Committee and the Park Avenue Beach Task Force. If reelected, aside from providing services to the community and always trying to better them, I would focus on bringing the Park District back in a fiscally prudent manner for COVID-19, protecting and preserving open space, increasing our waterfront use in our waterfront locations, and finishing the project on the preserve, which I came up with that idea 10 years ago at the first time I spoke at the League of Women Voters. So for those reasons, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Friedman, your opening statement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Freeman, and I understand how a thriving park district is critical for Highland Park families and Highland Park as a whole. If elected, I'd be the only woman and the only parent of school-age children on the park board. That is a critical representation for our community. I'm a mom, but I'm also an attorney and a business development professional for a Chicago tech company. I've spent the past 2 decades building consensus in complex endeavors, and I appreciate the data, the planning, and just work that it takes to show value for all of the stakeholders. I've spent time on various local boards like the Parks Foundation of Highland Park, the Highland Park Historical Society, HP-HWD, and North Shore School District 112 Reconfiguration 2.0 Community Team, and the caucus leadership. I believe that public service is a crucial part of belonging in a community like ours. And I'm not shy about that. I bring my dedication to Highland Park, my knowledge and love for the Park District, and prior local board experience to my enthusiastic pursuit of this board seat. If elected, I will ensure that the Park District offers competitive and diverse programming compared with other districts. I will champion the best use of our public lands and facilities, vetting all opportunities for fiscal responsibility and economic sustainability. Intergovernmental cooperation is key. We've all said it a bunch of times today, and I support the partnerships to share community resources between the Park District, the city, school districts, and I'm honored that many elected representatives from these governing bodies support me for this position. I will help guide an iterative process for ongoing long-range planning, which needs a few key pieces, and update maintaining existing beaches, parks, and facilities for the benefit of all residents. I look forward to answering your questions and earning your vote on April 6th.
Okay, thank you. And now, Mr. Peddle, your opening statement.
There, I'm absolutely honored to be a part of this. And I'm also honored to run against these 2 incredible candidates. I think that I bring a different set of eyes to the Park District. I think that through my 45 years of construction, rental, small business ownership, I can look through and give the executive director different guidance and subject matter that I don't know if everyone's going to look at the same. Anyone that knows me, I've spent about 9 years working on Stoopy Log Cabin from the concept to completion. We built a environmental, ecological, and also an agrarian feature into it that I think it will enhance the community in the Park District for many years to come. Those are a lot of the values that I have, is to be able to bring what I know to the park. The parks, they are the true value, I think, of our community. And I'd like to make sure that the parks are protected and nurtured. And that would be my opening statement. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you. Now we're on to our questions. And the first question will go to Ms. Friedman for the first answer. What skills or life experiences do you bring to the park board that distinguishes you from your opponents?
Well, I did mention, you know, the obvious that I have kids currently in the district, but that isn't necessarily the biggest differentiator. In terms of experience, I've spent a lot of time on different boards. One would be the NSSD North Shore School District 112 reconfiguration team. And in that, we reviewed district financials, facility conditions, educational requirements, a lot of different factors. And we balanced all those things to make a recommendation to the district to reconfigure the physical footprint of facilities with an eye towards fiscal responsibility versus educational impact. And I think the board here needs to make similar decisions on aging facilities. We've got deferred maintenance and different things that need a very similar eye in terms of analysis. And I bring that to the table.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peddle, your response?
Yes, being the only non-attorney running, I bring the small business aspect, and I bring I've owned, and it's harder to explain, but from everything, machinery, transportation equipment, these are all these little pieces that you can look at and bring in different cost analysis. And I think that in my eyes, looking at a sheet with equipment and bringing it down to environmentalism, and especially the green factor of EV vehicles. I'd love to see the whole Park District converted to EV. And I think it's pretty simple because it's a very local, and the resources aren't going to be heavy enough to take the batteries down. I think that it's almost simple to make ourselves almost 100% ecological. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kaplan on skills and life experiences?
Well, my main skill and life experience that I bring, aside from my 10 years of experience running the board and being a board member, is that I've spent the last 30 years as an attorney in the litigation field, and I've come up with an innate ability to work well with others. I'm a lifelong resident, and I have lasting relationships and a working relationship with City Council, District 112, District 113 members. I branched out recently. I'll become a member of the Finance Committee, thank you. And I joined NSSRA as a volunteer, working with participants on a weekly basis for the last 4.5 years before COVID hit, which gave me a new and unique perspective on life and life itself. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question will go to Mr. Peddle first. What are the key issues to be worked on for the Park District, and what is your position on them?
What are the key issues? The key issues to me, I assume that it is, or?
What do you see as the key issues that the Park District should be working on?
Well, one, it's twofold, I think, because one is maintenance, and that's a big deal to me, and that's where I think that I can bring a set of eyes differently. The other is sitting down in intergovernmental agreements between the city and the Park District. I believe if you are going to build on the border of Park District, we are going to be at that meeting. I believe environmental impact studies need to be provided. We need to see that our parks, Sunset Park, is protected for now and forever. It's much more delicate than people assume. You can't put a lot of these footprints across it and still maintain the treasure that it is. So the development against that park has to be really looked at through, open eyes and with a 100-year look at that park and the people that live in that area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Kaplan, key issues for the Park District?
In the short term, the key issue facing the Park District of Highland Park is maintaining that level of service that our residents expect and deserve while managing the COVID-19 related limitations to programs and revenue. The board must closely continue to monitor and oversee the district's finances with the goal to eliminate waste and to reduce the district's reliance on property taxes. The non-COVID-19 key issues to be addressed over the next term are Park Avenue Beach, including the boat launch, Moraine Beach, the Sunset Woods Park renovation, the completion of the preserve at Highland Park, Centennial Ice Rink renovation, and an updated Park District Master Plan. Finally, there is the renovation of West Ridge, which houses the Park District's administrative office, athletics and park school, Park District's early childhood learning program, as well as a location for performing. In order to do this, I've gotten on the Park Avenue Beach Task Force, the Finance Committee, and I've been instrumental in working with the Preserve in order to bring us forward in the next century. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Freeman, your response to this question?
Yep. Unquestionably, I'm in agreement with the others with a slightly different approach. I've reviewed the financials. I understand the revenue streams and appreciate the impact COVID has had on the district's ability to execute in the short term, and the survey responses that go into ranking priorities of different projects. And the next iteration of long-range planning not only needs to include deferred maintenance, but also establishing a building life cycle management program, which currently is not within the budget. And then we need to prioritize the big bets and the big projects and vet them against a framework of fiscal responsibility. Green print expires in 3 years. That's the big master plan. I also don't believe we can look at deferred maintenance of deteriorating parks and beaches and just say it's too expensive and throw up our hands. We need to say, here's what we want, here's a plan, and then let's find a way to fund it. Let's get it done, not wait for a third party to magically intervene with ideas. And then we need to be creative. So we have a knack in Highland Park for holding out for the big swings and the big bets and making our initiatives much more expensive than they may need to be. So to quote a good friend and neighbor, do we need 2 more Olympic-sized hockey rinks, or do we need a little more parking and a few more bathrooms and a good concession stand with some hot cocoa so we can use what we really have? I'm dedicated to finding a way to utilize our resources to not let perfect be the enemy of good.
Okay, now we're on to the next question, and we'll have Mr. Kaplan start first. The Park Board is the only governing body in Highland Park or Highwood with 6-year terms and only 5 elected officials. Would you support moving to 4-year terms and or expanding the number on the board? Why or why not?
I have no issue with making the term from 6 to 4 years. When I first ran 10 years ago, I ran for the 4-year term because you don't know if you're going to like it or not. 6 years is a big commitment. I'm asking for another 6 years, but I believe it's worth it. What was the second half? I apologize.
Oh, why would or not would you change terms? Why or why not from 6?
No, I think the second half.
Oh, the second was on the number of officials on the board, a number of commissioners. Would you change it from 5?
I would not change the number from 5 to 6 to 7 or 3 to 4. I think 5 is a good working number. It's worked so far. I wouldn't change that if less necessary. Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Freeman's next on that question, which asks, now the terms are 6 years. Would you change that? And would you increase the number of officials?
So I think we should encourage more people to roll up their sleeves and jump in. And I think 6 years is a big enough commitment that it can be a bit of a deterrent. So I would support a 4-year term. I also would support 7 members instead of 5. I think, when you see 3-2 votes happen with some regularity, it can be emblematic of a larger issue. But I also think it spreads a little bit of the decision-making ability around for a pretty large budget. So again, I appreciate that it's important to bring other members of the community in to do the work. And when we do things together, we can do big things. So I would welcome both changes that you mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Peddle, your response?
I'm fine with 5 people. You could easily go up to 6 or 7. I don't think that's a problem. More people, more votes. I do believe that 6 years it might be too long, especially if you're doing 2 terms and 3 terms. It just doesn't, it's not conducive to bringing new blood in. I really believe in the turnover of people. I think it's so important that young people continue to come into the Park District. I probably would only do this 1 term and try to get a younger person involved because they are the future of our district. They're the ones with the kids and the families. And it's that's where I stand on that, that we would, 8 years probably is enough for me. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we go to Ms. Freeman first for this next question, and it's on beaches and the lake. What changes would you like to see to improve residents' access both to the beaches and to the lake itself?
I appreciate the difficulty in this one is when we talk about erosion and Mother Nature and rising water levels, that's an uphill battle in terms of being able to repair access where Mother Nature has taken it away. Also, I mentioned the deferred maintenance. And in looking at Greenprint, looking at the long range planning for the lakefront properties, there's surveying that's done to ask the residents what their priorities are for spending money. There's only so much money to go around. And we've discussed how COVID has impacted revenue streams. So 2 things here. 1, I would help the district in any way possible to tweak offerings for programming to drive revenue back up. There are some places where programming for families was lacking in terms of participation or the ability to drive it. So I think we could up revenue there so that we aren't touching tax dollars and dipping more into that bucket. But then also, again, looking at the long range planning for maintenance, life cycle maintenance, and then restoring access to certain points, regardless of the cost, and having a plan, and then inviting other third parties to assist with funding that plan, rather than just sort of saying, well, it didn't survey well, this beach isn't accessed as much, and throwing our hands up. So those are my couple of points where I would tweak that.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Peddle, changes for beaches and the lake.
Sorry, I forgot to mute. I'm somewhat in Jen's camp on that. I do have a big change I'd like to see. I mean, I think that the lakefront really, and we're so, that's our treasure. We're honored to have it. I've talked to some engineers about a micro harbor, and I think the conversation should go forward on that. I also believe that that maintenance just simply wasn't spread out properly, and there's a lot of beaches that have not gotten the attention that they should have gotten over the last 10 years. It should be constant and continuous maintenance. That keeps costs low, and that's how I see our lakefront. It's the biggest treasure we have, and whether it's bringing your dog down to it or it's driving your car and just enjoying watching the water roll, and this is a treasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kaplan, unmute.
I believe that our beachfront properties are one of our biggest treasures. With respect to access, we started out with Rosewood Beach. We made that into an award-winning facility. Now we need to start moving northbound and do it with the rest of our 3 beaches. In order to effectuate this, I joined the Park Avenue Beach Task Force in an effort to preserve what we have down there and make it better. I think we also need to bring that up north to Millard Park. Thank you. Where we need to reopen access to that beach. We've got to do it all in a cost-efficient manner. Mother Nature has killed us, just killed us, and we are currently in the process of preparing studies to see the cost and the work needed to bring these 3 treasures up to standard and up to our par. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question is on maintenance. It will go to Mr. Peddle first. Lack of maintenance has been an ongoing issue at many Park District facilities. How can this be improved system-wide?
The Park District, like a city, like a business that runs maintenance, needs to be constant and continuous. So they need to be looking during walkthroughs. They need to look at roofs, cables, gutters. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a quick look on either schedule on a weekly basis, monthly basis. It's constant. It needs to, each item, if a barge is being, sorry to throw this one out there, but if a barge was breaking down, there was 10 years worth of welds that should have been done. These are all important little things that you constantly do. If it's painting, it has to be done without, it's just a part of what they do. It should be, the maintenance budget should be constant and it should not be compromised. I've walked each and every building, each and every park. I've gone over what I see equipment-wise and where I see a need for maintenance. Just simply, you paint something today, you fix it crap today, and it costs you maybe $100. But if you don't fix it, it's thousands of dollars tomorrow. That's what I would like to add to the park. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kaplan on maintenance to parks? Oh, you have to unmute, sorry.
Sorry about that. I will address this as post-COVID-19 maintenance because as a result of COVID-19 and a decrease in fees and revenue, we've had to decrease our staff. It's very simple. Park District always wanted a wow factor. We've always wanted people walking into our properties, walking into our facilities and saying wow, be it how it looks or how they're addressed by staff. The simplest way is to have a schedule and to follow that schedule and have the supervisor or manager of that property check the schedule at the end of every week or the end of every day to make sure that all maintenance is being done in a timely fashion and inspections are performed properly and timely. Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Freeman, your response?
I did address this a little bit earlier, so I'll elaborate. So my 3 points were address deferred maintenance, which we talked about. And Brian's right, there's a post-COVID world where generating additional revenue would be incredibly helpful there. Establishing the building life cycle management, like Joe said, if you need to paint every so many years, you need to budget that into the greater plan. So where we have the big wow factors and the big bets, maybe those don't need to be as big as we thought that they did, not in terms of service, but in terms of the facility. So the planning, the long range planning, and you can find them on the Park District website, maybe needs a little bit more input than just serving residents at the Park District facilities. It's hard to drive participation in terms of surveying, but really getting out there and finding what people want, not just asking people at the rec center what else they would like from the rec center. Would be one way to gather additional data points to reprioritize what we do for the bigger bets. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our next question goes to Mr. Kaplan first, and you've mentioned COVID, and that's the topic. How will the Park District services change if the COVID crisis continues another year? And what will summer camps look like?
Well, I think how it changes and how summer camps will look like will be dependent upon what the government and the governor allows us to do. Our staff right now is reevaluating every week, every other week, the changes going on due to COVID-19. No one knows what it'll look like, unfortunately, because we don't know how well the vaccine will work and what the herd mentality will be and when the vaccine will be over. I mean, will take effect. What we're trying to do in the Park District now is get as close to what we were having and what the Park District was before COVID-19, following all safety guidelines, rules, and regulations. Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Freeman, your response?
In terms of continuing to deliver value in the face of things that are outside of our control, the district has done a good job with programming, trying to run programs and actually successfully running them with distancing, changing the mechanisms, the timing, who is in a building or who is in a group at the same time. So I think some of those things are locked in unless restrictions would get even tougher in the future. So it's hard to answer again to things that remain unseen. But I think that having different revenue streams like the golf course were incredibly helpful so that we can take that revenue and work towards better programming in the future.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Peddle, your response?
I'm in basic agreement with both of them. I think it would be incredibly difficult to go forward. It would eat into reserves. I'm pretty much standing with where both of their comments from both Brian and Jennifer. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question goes to Ms. Freeman first, and it's on the environment. What is your position on helping the Park District to be, quote, more green? How would you work on this?
I think it's a good position to be in, to be a leader in terms of environmental sustainability. And given the amount of work there is to do, there are some economies of scale here, and also doing all of these things with an eye toward the future. So where we have deferred maintenance, perhaps then it's worth taking a look, spending the money to have green vehicles for the Park District, for example, or any plantings and things like that that need to be done should certainly be with an eye towards sustainability and working within the environment as well, bees, butterflies, that type of thing. I think this should be a measure that's explicitly included in Green Print ongoing. That is the master plan for all of our green spaces, which expires in 3 years. So the iterative planning involved there should certainly take into account environmental sustainability as part of the framework. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peddle, on the Park District being more green?
I did go through that before on where I see vehicles and vehicle utilization. I also see that in the programming where we teach children at the very earliest age environmentalism. We're already doing that on an incredible basis at Heller. I think that the older vehicles, as they come out, we definitely need to look at the newest technology in electric. There's no reason not to have electric vehicles when we're not even traversing 40, 50 miles in a day. Some of the high horsepower aspects where you have snow plowing involved, that we might have to look at a little more technology down the line, because I don't know if the horsepower is up to the purchase level yet. But any of the daily maintenance, minivans, golf cart type of vehicles that would be street legal, any of this is going to reduce our footprint almost immediately, and it's very simple to put into play. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kaplan, on the question on the being more green?
Well, I think the Park District is green and getting greener every day. We continue to monitor our open space. We continue to have recycle bins at all of our locations. We redid the Sunset Valley Golf Course. We voted to get electric carts, even though they were more expensive. They were better for the environment. They were lighter than gas carts. They were better for the ground. When we've been replacing vehicles, we've been looking into electric vehicles. And we've been discussing solar panels and solar energy with vendors. My feeling is you go solar, because even if you don't save any money on it, you're still saving the environment on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this will be the last question before opening statements, and we'll go to Mr. Peddle first. Illinois allows park districts to be separate units of government, broadly speaking. What are the advantages or disadvantages for residents if Parks and Recreation became a city department, reporting to the city manager?
I've honestly looked at this subject and I think it's very important. I'm a little worried about it in some ways. I would, though, very much like to see a tightening between the city and the park district. Everything from cutting grasses to building maintenance, these can integrate a little better and save money. I think we would definitely need a long-term sit-down between the park district and the city. One of the visuals that anyone could see is there's a piece of property in downtown Highland Park that has 3 government entities cutting the grass on it. And to me, it seems silly. The park district should be cutting all that grass and then working back with the city. It's just worth the conversation, in my opinion, to sit down with the city and see where these overlapping services can be addressed and immediately reduced. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Kaplan? Oh, please unmute yourself.
Have it. I think it's got to be looked at on a park district to park district basis. Highland Park is one of the bigger park districts in the area with some of the most land. With the vast number of programs that we run, the vast number of holdings that we have, the vast amount of land we have, I think it works well being a separate entity other than the city running it. It's got to be run. It's got to be run well. You've got to have the same amount of staff. Either way. Overlapping services are something we've been discussing with the city for years. When we built our maintenance facilities, we talked to them about combining our maintenance facilities, but unfortunately, both facilities were too big, and we weren't able to do that. The disadvantage is that you have 2 entities of taxing bodies working not always in conjunction with each other, because there's different values in different services between a city, which is police, fire, electricity, roads, and a park district, which is the service industry. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Freeman on this question.
Both covered it. I do want to make a finer point on exactly what the park district encompasses, and maybe everyone doesn't know. 700 acres of land, 44 parks, beaches, 11 sports and nature facilities, and a ton of programming that goes with that. It's a very much feel-good fabric of the community body. And yes, it's a taxing body. It's 6% of tax revenue. There's also programming revenue, memberships, grants, and other sources that fund the gap between the tax dollars and the rest of the outgo of the park district. And then the city, as Brian mentioned, is, the infrastructure, the plumbing, the electrical, and all of those other things. So they're 2 very significantly different bodies, and putting them together would, one may hamstring the other, to say the least. In terms of any disadvantages, it's true, there are 2 places that the money comes from, but I believe that in the feel-good aspect of things, this is one worth keeping apart. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to our closing statements. And the first closing statement goes to Mr. Peddle, and it's 1 minute in length.
Thank you again so much for everything. I hope the voters will take a serious look at me. I'm available to answer questions anytime. I think I can, and I would wish to enhance the park district with my skills and my knowledge. I believe that I did this previously with Stupid Log Cabin. I believe we enhanced the park around it, the education around it. And that's what I would like to bring. I would bring conversations to the park district, conversations about utilization, conversations about maintenance, what works best. Absolutely honored to be a part of this, and thank you to Jennifer and Brian and thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Freeman, your closing statement?
Running for park board has been an affirming experience so far. I enjoy talking with all of you and inspiring with fellow community members to do the hard work. I'm asking for your vote to be one of 5 members of a decision-making body representing tens of thousands of residents. But I'm the only one who now truly represents young families, key to the richness and the future of our community. I support intergovernmental cooperation and have the support to back such collaboration. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving voters access to all of us today. And thank you to the voters for listening. I'm Jen Freeman, and I bring a breadth of experience, depth of skill set, and unabashed enthusiasm for this work as I ask for your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kaplan, you have the last closing statement.
I unmuted this time. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for giving me this opportunity to talk today. I'd like to wish all candidates in all races, including Joe and Jennifer, luck in the upcoming election. I think over the past 10 years, I've proven myself worthy of another chance to continue the good work that I've done for the Highland Park District. I'd really like the opportunity to continue working and finishing the project with the preserve and working on the lakefront and bringing up full access to all 4 of our lakefront properties. Highland Park was getting to be an older community with fewer young families. Those demographics are changing, and I feel that I'm positive that I'm the right person to lead us or to assist in leading us into the demographic change. And I ask for your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the candidates for Highland Park District Commissioner, Mr. Peddle, Ms. Freeman, and Mr. Kaplan for participating in this forum, and to the League of Women Voters of Highland Park-Highwood for sponsoring the forum. Remember to cast your ballot. Voting by mail and early voting have begun. Expanded early voting is March 22nd through April 5th. Election day is April 6th. Thank you again to the League, the candidates for participating, and to the audience for attending. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you.